So as you can see here, I've gotten two setups here. One of them is a fully 3D Shako plate, and the other one is a diamond. Now, why do I have two of these things together? Well, the how I do Shako plates is in using a concept called baking. And the baking is, to put it in layman's terms, it is you grab a 3D object and put it in a 2D space, while still retaining the identity of the 3D object. Let me try to put it differently. When I bake this mesh onto this diamond using Substance Painter or other texturing programs, what will happen is that the program in question will create a map that will tell me, or will tell the game, this object has detail that needs to be reflected through light. So, for example, if you look at this object, the reason that I'm getting the highlights and the dark spots because the game or the program knows that these are objects that are meant to be higher or like taller than the main surface. So by baking this into that, you will retain the detail, but you will lose all of the triangles. Because remember, this is a triangle. It only has two triangles, 1 and 2. Whereas this thing has, I don't know how many triangles, but it has a lot. You don't want to put this into Studio, because it will lag the shit out of your game. You want to put this into Studio, but you want it to have this detail on here. So how do you do it? You bake it. So let me open up Substance Painter for that. I'll try to explain again, because I noticed, I see the comments. Somewhere in 2006, a guy figured out that if you tell a program that a texture has detail in it that is the equivalent to high or low surfaces, you can manipulate the program into telling you, the player, that this surface has detail when it actually does not. The only thing this is doing, baking this information into this, is it's making the program think that there's lighting here bouncing off of different places and different heights where there is not, because this is a flat surface. However, you want it to look like a 3D surface when looking at it from above or from sideways. And I will show you that when I do this. So I'm going to go to File, New. I'm going to select my mesh. I need to export it first. So I'm going to select my base diamond, put it in a file. And I'm going to select my high poly or my physical Shako plate and put it in another file. And I'm going to go back to my Substance Painter, select the triangle, the diamond shape. That's what I want to use. And as you can see now, we just have the plane. And if we if we go to this angle, you can see there's no detail, there's nothing, it's completely flat. You want it to have detail. How do you do it? You bake the detail of the high poly mesh, which is the real Shako plate, onto the 2D surface. So I'm going to go to my Bake Mesh Maps section, select the high poly file, and then I'm going to move my frontal distance up a little bit, like this, until it turns blue. When it turns blue, you know it's ready. And as soon as I hit Bake Selected Textures, you will see the 2D plane is now getting the detail from the high poly plane, from the actual Shako plate. And as you can see right now, we have detail. It looks like we have detail, but this actually, it's not. This is still completely flat. As you can see, there's no high or low. The number's not real, the sides are not real. It's not real, but it looks like it's real. It's manipulation of light, because as soon as I move the sun around, you can see it starts changing the different corners and the different ideas. This is an old technique. It's already been out for several decades by now, but it works. It's manipulation of light. I really cannot explain it in a better way. Nick or Hollandi in the chat asked, wouldn't the 3D Shako Blade look better than the 2D Shako Blade because it has natural lighting? You are right, it would. But in the dimensions of video games, you do not have the luxury to be able to afford having a bunch of physical meshes inside of your game that the game will have to calculate all of the triangles for at every frame that you move or even stand still in. So this is the best alternative we have thus far. And of course, the technology is always improving. I mean, I don't know if you guys ever seen the new trailer for Unreal Engine 5, if you're interested in video game making, where there's like a girl that walks into a cliff, but you can see the cliff has every single detail, and everything of that is fake. It's all just light manipulation. And it was about, I think it was about 2 years ago that Roblox finally decided to add this to their game as well, so that you can implement these techniques into your own game. But going back to this, the whole thing is like, why am I doing this with Shako Blades? It's because it's the best way to do this. Because now I have a full-on Shako Blade with all the detail and all the height necessary to make it look good on a literal plane that I can manipulate into curving onto the Shako, because I will show you that now, how I did that for my Shakos itself. Because what I simply do is I grab the plate. As you can see, this is still a plane. It just has a couple of more edge loops on it, but it's still a plane. It's nothing else. But I baked the marine plate, the marine Shako plate, which I also have as a physical mesh, onto this plate. So now I have the luxury of a few triangles providing me with the detail of many millions, because trust me, this thing is several million triangles in size. You can bake detail into Blender. The only problem is Blender doesn't allow you to bake textures into itself. But I will personally send you a video on how you do that in Blender, because I have stopped using that. I've never actually done it in Blender because I always thought it was way too tedious. Blender baking tutorial. Let me see, where are we? Does anyone have questions thus far about how this works? All right, what's up? I'll answer your question in a sec. Hold on, D. I'm waiting for the guy that said he doesn't want his name mentioned. I'm still confused. If you like you have a diamond, right? If you do, you have it, put it in a file and then put it into Blender. No, because you can make the diamond in Blender. Blender is a modeling program. All right. Let's see. Next question. Hold on. The odd Shako Blade forms. The shape of the Shako Blade still doesn't matter, because the good thing about Substance Painter is that, actually, I'm going to show you this. So let's take a different plate, because I have many more. Let's actually take the marine plate, for example. Sorry, I have a ton of stuff here. Yeah, blah, 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 blah. Go away, go away, go away. I have a eagle here. I have the Young Guard eagle. Let's just merge this together. And then I'm going to bring back my plane. Make it slightly bigger so it fits. The important thing is it has to fit the Shako plate itself. So let's just make it slightly bigger, like so. And then we do the same procedure. I export my plane. And then I export my high poly mesh, which might take a sec because this thing is also several million triangles. I go into Substance. I just make a new file, select my plane again. I discard this because I don't need it anymore. We have a plane. I do the same procedure with the baking. Grab the high poly mesh, up the frontal distance until it becomes blue. Bake. Sorry, one sec. One thing I forgot to mention, turn this off. Dilation width. Turn it off, because it's weird. It makes edges that you don't want. And the cool thing is now, because I baked the high poly mesh onto the low poly mesh, Substance Painter will recognize that the only mesh that's important is this. So everything you can see is dark gray outside the area, Hollandi, is going to be disregarded when you export this. Like, it'll just have a black background. Yeah. Now, as for texturing, it basically goes to the same thing, because it disregards this background. If I now move my brass texture onto this, you can see it turns this into a dark brown thing that it doesn't look at. So even though it doesn't matter. The only problem with this, though, is that as soon as I export it, I will export it real quick. While I'm doing this, guys, please remember, I'm not explaining to you how to use Substance Painter. I'm explaining to you how I make Shako plates. If you want to know how to bake, how to make textures, how to use Substance Painter itself, just go to YouTube and watch the first video, because there's tons of videos explaining these things. It's just that, of course, you can't really find detailed videos about how do you make Napoleonic Shako plates in Substance Painter, because nobody does this stuff. I will show the problem that will arise with this, because as you can see, the color map still has the background, right? So what I usually do is I go to the map called Mixed AOE, and I will just delete the background in paint.net. All right. Banana, do you have to UV unwrap these? You don't have to UV unwrap the high poly plate, the high poly mesh, but you do have to UV unwrap your plane. However, when you insert a plane into Blender, it's already UV unwrapped. If you changed anything about it that would make it a 3D model, you would have to then re-unwrap it. But what I usually do is just I make the plane, I don't do anything with it, I texture it, and then I start messing with it. You want to do as little work as possible with this, in terms of like readjusting things, remaking it. It's just important that the plane that you have, or the diamond that you have, because these are very basic shapes, of course, fits your Shako plate. The Young Guard Eagle, this took me 2 days to make, to sculpt in Blender. That is the downside of this. Especially when doing French or like Westphalian plates, is that most of them use eagles, and those are just a nightmare to make. So when if you guys want to start making Shako plates, just start doing like the simple ones. I don't know, like the French number plates, or the British crown plates, which have pretty basic. The eagle is a question of I'll show you. Yep. Do you know how, Kirill, do you know how to sculpt, or do you know what sculpting is in Blender? Okay. Sculpting is it's a weird thing, because you're basically doing the exact opposite of what you should usually do in video games. So instead of making your mesh as low poly as possible, you want to make it as high poly as possible. As in, you want to make as many of these little squares into a single thing as possible. So what I start with is I will subdivide this into multiple sections. If you press W and you see this menu come in, you just click subdivide, and it will create an divide again. It will make whatever 16 versus 16 is. And if you just keep doing this again and again and again and again, you'll get very, very small squares. And you just kind of want as many of these squares as possible until your PC starts getting too slow. So like if your square starts looking like this, you should be good. Yeah, subdivide, subdivide, subdivide. What you want to be doing is you want to go to this mode here. You're currently in edit mode. I explained the difference between edit mode and object mode in my previous tutorial. If you want to take a look at that later on. You click here, and then instead of going to either of these two, you click on sculpt mode. Now, sculpt mode is literally what it says it'd be. You're sculpting. You're grabbing a knife or like a palette or like a spoon, and you're carving into your model. But here's the cool thing: you can also extrude. You can't just carve. It's also you have the ability to do the exact opposite. You can draw on your little thing. So, for example, if I click, you can see I can now make detail. I can make weird Minecraft mountains using this technique. So with sculpting comes these various brushes that you can use. Every single one of them has their own properties. Some people make their own brushes because it's easier, but just kind of give these a crack until you find something that works for you. For example, as you can see, this one is rough, but then if I click change to clay, I get a very smooth bevel. And now here's where the long work hours and very little reward comes in, because now you are going to have to basically start shaping out the basic shape of your eagle. So say we have the French eagle has like a weird shaped belly, like so. And then it has the wings. So let's just do this. And then we do this. Kind of fill it in. Add a couple of legs. And a weird head. Of course, you have to do this much finer job than whatever I'm doing right now, but gives you a basic idea. You make the basic shape, and then you start drawing feathers. You start doing toes, more feathers. Make a little eye, perhaps. Let's get some negation. So I think this is the one that's, yeah, there we are. This one will make a hole instead of, this will carve instead of draw. So like, there we are, we have a little eye. Let's make a sharp beak. Add a little bit of a nice, oh wait, wrong one. Let's make a nice little tooth. Here we are. And boom, you've made the Waterloo at Home eagle. Nice. That looks good, man. Damn. Honestly, I mean, you did the stitching in 3D, which is not necessary, and some of your details are not correct in scale, but apart from that, it looks great. Well, I mean, Zayos, you have to use a plane, because remember, I'm still working on a plane. This is still a physical plane. But it's called a plane, as in if you're thinking about an airplane, then oh yeah, no, yeah, you need to add more lines. But this is basically it. This is how you do it, and you just kind of get better at this every single time. It's just how much detail you want to put into this is really up to you. Because I mean, right now I did this in 2 minutes, but you can go much further. You can make the little feathers here. You can make the sharp ones, like the sharp hairs. You can make the edge a bit more refined by grabbing the um, pinch tool. Where is it? Pinch. There we are. You can make the edge a bit more sharp, sharper edges. It's just experimenting. That's what it comes down to. And with more and more work, you just get better and better. Oh yeah, that's exactly it. Because remember, there's also parts in your thing that you don't need to sculpt. Um, I will go back into edit mode or grab one of my plates for that. So, for example, I'm not gonna sculpt the horn. That'd be weird because you don't need to. You can just make a cylinder and extend it and extend it and extend it and until it becomes more like a bugle. But like I said, it's not as a matter of like you need sculpting to make plates. It's more like if you can model an eagle, then you don't need to sculpt it. But as long as you can do that, it's better to just kind of sculpt it and make it look good. But most of the time it's going to be construction because remember, why would you sculpt a bugle? Literally, I mean, this is just a physical mesh. This took me 10 minutes to make. If I did this in sculpting mode, it would take me like an hour. So it's when it comes down to um, certain things, it just comes down to your own skill. But I have a rule that says if it's an animal, you want to sculpt it. Uh, if it's a musical instrument or a number, you just model it easy. But yeah, like I said, just start with easy plates. Like honestly, even if it's not something that you use for your own nation, like I saw somebody mentioning Dutch plates, like the Dutch number plate. That's a good one. French diamond plate is a good one. Let me think. Uh, Russian plates, avoid those because those are hard. But you can make the grenade version. Um, Let me think. Some of the Rhineland nations have pretty easy plates. Azel, Azel. I'm not gonna say that name. That's a good one. I will go to my Shako for this. What I did here was quite simple. I'm gonna do it again to show you. So I'm gonna mark the position of the where I want the plate to have. So in this case, I'm just gonna go to the Shako. Sorry. I'm gonna select the curve here, and I'm gonna see if I can find a square. Now, if you look closely here, you can actually see a already pre-made square literally for you right here. If I select these four faces, what do we have? Boom, square, easy. So in this case, I'm just gonna do Shift D to duplicate, and then move it forward slightly. And then I'm gonna press P to separate the selection. And then boom, here is your plane, ready and pre-curved. Forgot to mention one thing. So now, remember, we still have a problem because if we just add a plane, it will be already UV unwrapped. This will not because it's currently in the UV unwrapping of the Shako. So to re-UV unwrap it, you just you just select it and you press U, unwrap. Forgot to remove the seam line. Sorry. Unwrap. And now it's curved, so let's just do RX 90. let's rotate 90 degrees again, and let's move it into position. There we are. Make it slightly taller, maybe even make this flat, and boom. There is your plate, UV unwrapped and pre-curved. I'd say this one is not very difficult because it's just a circle. You can actually model the. Actually, let me think. You can model the crown. The leaves are not very easy to model. The monogram, the letters are not. I'd recommend modeling the outer edge and the crown and leaving the rest to sculpt. The Pavlov Grenadier one, this one, model the shield and model the crown and maybe model the letters here, the little ribbon, and just sculpt the eagle because that one is hard. In fact, I will show you guys a very good reference to a plate I did with both modeling and sculpting together because it's not that difficult. Alright, this is the Shako plate that I made for my NASA, which is still close to this day because I kind of gave up on it. You can see here very well that it's a perfect combination of both modeling and sculpting because, as you can see, the drum is modeled, the balls are modeled, the cannon is modeled, the swords and all the other things are modeled. But then when you come to the flags, you can see the flags are sculpted because I had to make the creases, as well as the knight's little armor is also sculpted. But everything else is modeled because you don't need to. It's all about perspective, remember. Even if it looks like this, as you can see, like why is this all curved and weird and stuff? It's because it doesn't matter, because as soon as you turn it to first person, you won't see it. All you need to worry about is that if you look at it from the front, the perspective will be correct. And it will work. And as soon as you have that, your plate is gonna look great. Quandilium, yes, I'd recommend using just slightly transparent and make sure the detail is nicely visible. Now I know one of you guys suggested I should do Shako Cords, so I'm gonna spend the last 15 minutes of this tutorial to explain how Shako Cords work. Here we are. Alright then, Shako Cords. Right now you might be thinking, what am I looking at? And I will explain. If I can pull up the UV map for this one. I made my Shako Cords in a very weird way because I saw, I think it was it again? There we are. Kirill, you can see his Shako cord looks is just a rope going across the Shako, which is what I did, but I didn't just make it out of rope entirely. I didn't start out with rope. Let's just say that. What I did instead was I first made a UV unwrap that has been divided into 4 sections. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, and I'll show you that in the texture itself. So let me pull up. Yeah, you can see it. No, that's not the right picture. Sorry. Here. You can see it has 4 sections. It has the pancake, this the UV unwrap for the tassel, and this is the back of the Shako cord, and this is the front of the Shako cord. I did this so I can maximize detail on all 4 of these parts without losing anything. Because here's the thing: normally people would UV unwrap the cord in one line. So you would, if I made the rope, I would UV unwrap it across the length of the rope, and then just lay it out open in the UV unwrap. So it would go from here down to here in one go. The problem is that it would be too small for detail to show up correctly. So instead, I made individual sections, which I will show now. You can show them here. So as you can see, It goes from large to small to large to small to large to small. That's what's happening over here. So we have large, small, large, small. These are tubes. These are just small tubes that I arranged in order, and each individual section of them is UV unwrapped to lay down flat on the front and the back part of the Shako cord. The problem is, of course, that the Shako cords themselves are not just literally rope. They have a motif. They have a pattern, as you can see here. It's a constant. It's a horizontal circle, and then one circle going into the next one, and then going into the next one, next one, next one, and it just continues on that line. So what I did was I made a mesh of that knot, and I then baked it onto one of the sections of the UV unwrapping. Because as you can see, this is just 1/4 of the map. So I baked this texture onto that texture, onto this plane, which would make up one of these squares. All right? So then I did the exact same thing, but without all the hassle with these parts. And now this is so freaking difficult, I would never recommend doing this to anyone. This was very kindly donated to me by Krish, who is no longer really doing modeling, but he made the old guard version of the raquette, and I spent, I don't think I know how many hours spent making this thing. And oh boy, this is, if you ever find yourself in a situation where you wanna work on something so unnecessary yet so detailed that you would die, then make this, because it's very 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 difficult. It's a constant weave of rope that it's not even just a regular weft. It goes up and down through itself and follows a pattern and it comes back out. This is very difficult to make. So I don't recommend, if you have the ability to do so, just grab an image of the internet and use that as your texture rather than doing this. Because if you come up to if you came up to an actual professional game studio and you offered to do this for them, they would say no, because it's going to take you hours and we don't have the money. This is not how video game studios do it. However, I still did it in the first place, but that's just because the end result looks great. I believe Garrick also did it this way. That's why his cords look bangers. So yeah, video game studios generally just take like good pictures of whatever they're trying to make and then they put it as their texture. But then yeah, that's all they do, because I don't have access to high quality cameras or pictures of these things. So I'd rather just model the thing and have the ability to say, yes, I spent hours of my life making something that will only be looked at a quarter of a second, and then thought, yeah, that looks nice. How do you do baking? You make a very nice, real physical version of a Shako plate, and then you just paste it, you smack it onto a very rough outline or just a simple shape of the Shako plate itself. And by the method of baking, and then of course applying textures, you can make it into a really, really, really nice looking mesh or Shako plate. How to make Shako plates? It's a mixture of both sculpting and modeling. And like I said, one of the keys that I remember is if it's an animal, you sculpt it. If it's a physical number or shape, you just model it. That's all you have to do. Some of these things will take hours. You just gotta have to be patient and try to, I don't know, just like have fun making it, because if you're only working for the results, then you're never gonna really appreciate working in the first place. And of course, with the cords, is that the cords are, you can do them in a various number of ways. I explain how to do mine, and my DMs are open. So if you have a question that cannot be solved by YouTube, please DM me. If it can be solved by YouTube, please don't DM me, because I don't want to. I'm sorry, but I don't want to answer questions like how do I model, because if you don't know how to model, then this tutorial is not really for you. Then you still need to watch multiple other tutorials before you can get started. Because I like to do these tutorials not to show you how to use Blender. I'd like to show you these tutorials because I want to teach you guys how to do Napoleonic and like other stuff in Blender, not how to use it. All right, I'll do more tutorials in the future. If you have topics you want to get covered, DM me about it because I'm more than willing to do more of these things. I like doing it.